Right, we can pretend now, everybody, that this is a normal edition of the world's number 6 best procurement podcast, Procurement Says No, which we normally start like this. Welcome to Procurement Says No, episode 31. We are number 2 on Alchemie, but number 31. And we are in collab and live on the Alchemie Network. And yes, we are live, unless you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any of the other podcasts, in which case we were live. You missed it. Where were you? We're also available on Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, or the other way around, TikTok, linked up. And of course, this will all be classed as high quality resource on the Alchemie Network. So I am, as usual, joined by Mr. Ed Cross. Good evening, Ed.
Viva Dubai.
Yes, I'm also joined by Alchemie Supremo, Alex Jennings, who has recently become the 10,801st billionaire to leave the UK. Hello, Alex.
That's right. That's right. I was hoping to get here before number 10,000, but we just missed out there. And yes, we are now officially a Dubai residents. We got our IDs this week, so and our visas, so we are official. We're doing our bit to reduce our carbon footprint by moving out here. Yeah, we're loving it. It's a great place to be.
Well, I hope you haven't bought yourself a 5.1 litre massive truck, and I hope you'll have no air conditioning in your new apartment, keeping the carbon footprint down.
It's 6.2 litre V8, but we'll talk about that another day.
Shush. That stays on tour. So the topic for this evening's event, dear listeners, is: can AI save us from Trump's tariffs and global meltdown? Short answers: no.
No.
Isn't AI free of tariffs, though?
I think it is.
We're only talking about tariffs on goods and commodities.
Yeah.
Yes, no services. So last week we saw the latest development in the global tariff drama, with some agreements made. So well done, Sir Keir. Some deals which are close, and some prime ministers and presidents are on the Trump naughty step, like Mark Carney. So Ed has been spamming up on all the latest and can give us a bit of a view, but that is as of 7 minutes past 5 p.m. BST. So, of course, it will have all changed by 6 p.m. Liberation Day, April the 12th. What a day it was. Seems to have been going on longer than that, though. Tariffs is a beautiful word. Any opening thoughts from you both? Can I just go to Alex first? Any initial thoughts about where we all are in this crazy world?
I mean, I've spent 40 years negotiating, and you do sometimes, occasionally, want to create some chaos, so the opponents don't know what it is you're trying to achieve. It's a tool that you can use. Normally, I've done it by getting someone in quality to say they're not happy with the quality of somebody's product, and it creates some nervousness in the sales guys' thinking. But Trump, he's taken this to a new level. He's really enjoying it. He's loving it. And I'm not sure he knows what he's going to be doing next week. That's the fun thing watching this, that we're flip-flopping. And it's very reactionary. But, you know, you mentioned in one of your podcasts, brilliant podcasts, about 4 episodes ago, when you were talking about unintentioned consequences of actions. And there have been so many since this. And some of the reason he's been flip-flopping backwards and forwards, in my opinion, is he wasn't expecting some of the reaction that he's had, and he's having to deal with that on the hoof. It's fun to watch, but scary to think about where this is going to end, because this next lot, if you remember the journalist about 2-3 weeks ago that accused him of not being able to stick with his commitments, that he was going to cave in, he didn't like that.
Respect my authority.
Something like that. He's on the 1st of August, these 30% tariffs, I think they're going to hit. And the 50% with Brazil, and the higher one with Mexico and Canada. But interestingly, so many of them don't seem to have anything to do with trade. And he's just using it as a weapon to try and fix everything in the world. So his latest one is Russia. He's going to increase the tariffs on Russia now to try and stop the war. So it's like, if you only read one book in your life,
Yeah.
Ed, what do you think about war?
Yeah. It's not good for much, is it, really? Say it again.
War.
Say it again. It's quite interesting, Alex. There's loads of things you could throw around in this. So the first one, this is a satirical question for our listeners. I know that they can't necessarily answer, but is he modelling tariffs and the application of tariffs on the Bahamas and Bermuda? I've been looking into the background of tariffs, and what I found is that in Bahamas, they have a base rate tariff of 35%. That people have talked about averages, I think, with Donald's tariffs, which comes in actually at about 18.5% effective rate on all imports into the Bahamas. Yeah. And 60% of government revenue is from tariffs, and there are no tax in the Bahamas. But the trade deficit is still nearly $8 billion. Go figure. So
I think there's a lot of strange shell companies set up in those parts of the world, aren't there?
And would you believe Bermuda's the same? So I'm just thinking, has the President of the United States regularly been to the Caribbean and thought, whoa, this is nice? Because Bermuda is per capita amongst the richest countries in the world. So is he modelling his tariffs on Bermuda and Bahamas? I ask you.
Yes. There is that shell company called Hendricks and Jennings 2025 Bermuda Limited.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so there's literally about 4 countries in the world where they're almost completely reliant on import tariffs. But the other thing, I think, just picking up on the point that was made, is I think if you start looking behind the data and reading some of the reports, I was reading some stuff from JP Morgan and a few others about the impact of tariffs. It does look like it's a lever to manipulate countries and get them into the right place to play to the United States' tunes. And what are we to argue with that? You know, who's elected? The other is it's also targeting products, and it's also targeting commodities. So when you look at the data, and I think when we talk about this later, if you're a procurement person trying to navigate this, it's really hellishly complicated. The tariff rates are different by country. You overlay with holds on tariffs. Now it's August, isn't it, for a lot of countries, I think, when it's going to be applied. It was going to be June, and it was going to be March, and it was February, and all that sort of stuff. So is it a very complicated lever to manipulate countries, products, and global commodity markets? We know that copper is going through the roof at the moment because it's being hit with a 50% tariff. And then the other is it all about political influence? Is it getting countries into the position that the US president would like to see them in, which is doing what they're told, basically? So what is it a tool for?
Yes. Well, we shall discuss further, but first we've got some news for all you listeners. This is also related to power and tariffs. I'm sure it will be, but no one told me this, but apparently Ferrero has bought Kellogg's in the US. Did you know that? For $3.1 billion. They've done it to diversify their manufacturing portfolio. This is from Procurement Magazine, story by Aaron McMillan on the 14th of July. And it marks Ferrero's strategic expansion into cereals. Oh dear, I think there's a lot of tariffs on cereals, enhancing its influence in the US cereal market by diversifying products beyond chocolates. The acquisition will focus on optimizing Ferrero's manufacturing and distribution network, extending its operational reach across the US, Canada, and the Caribbean. Cocoa price fluctuations have impacted profitability recently, so Ferrero's move towards cereals offers a cushion against economic pressures.
They're going to have cereals, aren't they? They're going to be like those little Ferrero Rocher balls that you can buy for Christmas. They're just going to be a big box of them, and you can pour your milk on them and a bit of sugar. Oh, lovely!
It's going to be health food, literally. Kellogg's recently separated from Kellogg's Co.'s snacking sector business, now known as Kellanova. Crap name. The transition has pressured the cereal division amid shifts towards healthier options, as you say, and more budget-conscious consumers. So these changes have squeezed branded cereal sales. However, Ferrero is not aiming to sustain, but to invigorate these brands through supply chain and procurement and marketing and innovative product development. So they bought a business which is failing, and they're going to make it better by sprinkling some magic on it. Conclusion of the acquisition hinges on regulatory approval in the US and elsewhere, and is anticipated to finalize in the latter part of 2025. So as I say, chocolate-covered cornflakes is probably going to be their first product innovation. Oh, Ambassador, you spoil us. Hang on, this is a bowl of Frosties.
In their first week, they've had a huge win because Kennedy has made Coca-Cola bow towards moving their recipe in North America away from corn syrup back towards kind of sugar cane and sugar syrup. So corn prices are probably going to go down because
there you go.
They're going to make a killing now on their cereals. So yeah,
the serial killer, in fact.
Serial killer. So yeah, the Kennedy is actually starting to have an effect now. Interesting.
I've got some more news here. So this is related to trade deals and things. Keir Starmer has recently bought 12 US F35 fighter jets for a bargain price of $2 million in an effort to call up to the Donald and mitigate further tariff problems. So these jets are capable of carrying US nuclear bombs, so that's good, and dropping them as part of a NATO nuclear campaign. So that's super. But according to Bernard Gray, who was Chief of Defence Materiel, we like that word, don't we, Ed?
We do, we love it.
And UK National Armaments Director from 2011 to 15, maybe rather than calling to Trump, we should be buying some anti-missile defence systems because we don't have one. They're being used quite effectively in different parts of the world at the moment. Or we could re-equip our ships and aircraft to be able to repel a conventional attack, given that we've been supplying much of our weapon stocks to Ukraine and now probably run out. Apparently, supplies of the Storm Shadow cruise missile is perilously low. So you have $2 billion. What are you going to spend it on in the UK? Road network, rail network, electricity network, water infrastructure? No, nuclear bomb carrying jets, but not even ones that are made in Europe or the UK. Brilliant.
You're missing the point, Rich. They look sexy in the air. Don't they take off? They make a lovely noise. They fly up. They've got like big afterburners on. Well, why would you want roads and water and stuff like that?
True. Who needs them after the nuclear bomb's dropped anyway?
Yeah, precisely.
And I've got one last piece of news, which is Deloitte has expanded its welfare benefits to US employees, allowing them to go out and purchase up to $1,000 per year on stress-relieving items, calm, such as Lego, spa services, gaming consoles, drugs, and prostitutes. I may have made the last two up. Not sure how it will manage the procurement of this. I think it'll all be expensed rather than going through any kind of I need to pee system. But did you know there are 173,000 employees for Deloitte in the US? So that adds up to a total of $173 million, which, if Deloitte wanted to, means they could buy an F-35 too.
Is that just a jet or with a nuclear weapon attached?
I think that's an option.
Is it?
Yeah, not every country's allowed to buy the option though.
Yeah, you can have a sunroof or a nuclear bomb. Ooh, can I have a stereo upgrade? Anyway, Ed, news. You've got some news as well.
It's interesting because we talk about AI a lot, and I think there's a lot of press around at the moment about the doomsday that is AI. And there's been a bit more recently in the media, I think, just like, we've got to stop it now before it takes over. Then there's examples of robots attacking people. I think there's one in Japan or China or somewhere. And then I think there's some robots or AI apps that have had arguments with each other, and it's all become a bit like the end of they probably want one of those nuclear weapons or one of those F-35Bs, don't they, I think, Rich? But looking at the stats, the economic stats, right, tech jobs are down in America. So we've got a picture in the UK and the US of increasing employment. So there's lots of doomsday merchants out there going, AI, all these jobs are going to be lost. But the reality is that we are in the UK at the highest position ever for employment in terms of number of people employed, not unemployment. And in the US, job growth continues to rise. However, jobs in tech are falling. Mm-hmm. So are the AI bots just replacing the tech folk, I ask you?
I think it wasn't on Linked Up, it was on FaceFriend. An MIT study has found that heavy AI use reduces memory, critical thinking, and brain activity, according to the MIT on EEG scans of 54 students, a big population.
It's a big representative sample.
Representative sample of 54 students over 4 months. Frequent AI users, MIT says, produced less original work, struggled to recall their writing, and exhibited mental passivity, even when switching to unaided tasks. So there you are. What were we talking about?
What was it you said? Perhaps Alex can help us.
Alex, what?
So with regard to the tech total quantity going down, I think that the stats are clear on that. But the other end of the scale, they're all fighting over the experts. And I know if you read Meta, led by Mark Zuckerberg, recruited somebody, and they're paying signing bonuses of $100 million. So if you know what you're doing, so they've been stealing them from OpenAI and getting them across to Meta, because there's a war on this, and the winners become, the Nvidia of tomorrow. So 100 million, when they breached the $4 trillion last week. I think they're worth 4.2 trillion now, based on I don't know what. I don't really understand the maths. It's very much future generated, but they're paying 100 million to steal the experts from each other right now. There's a bit of a tech war going on.
Ed doesn't get out of bed for less than 200 million, though, do you?
No, I'm just thinking that 100 million, that won't buy me an F35.
No, you'll need another 100 million. Actually, though, if we both go for the job, we get 200 million, we can buy one.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. But then you'll argue about what colour. And,
black, let's get a black one with stripes.
$100 million. So they're getting rid of this tail of their employees, and they're spending it all on one guy, and they're giving him 100 million.
Yeah.
That's not even the salary, that's a signing bonus.
That's just amazing, isn't it, really? 100 million.
It's probably in stocks and shares, but it's still real.
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah. I'm going to polish up my CV, I think.
Just put it into ChatGPT and send it.
Yes. Meta AI job application.
We have one of those already done, already prepared, sir.
So the other thing it picked up, which is slightly different, a bit UK centric, but maybe will roll out suddenly in Europe and possibly elsewhere in the world, is that it looks like there's legislation going through employment rights. It's called the Employment Rights Bill in the UK, and it's rolling through at the moment through Parliament. And it's going to outlaw non-disclosure agreements for certain things like sexual harassment and so forth.
Yeah.
So just making the link to some of the high-profile cases like Jeffrey Epstein, for example, Mohammed Fayyad. This is a device used by lots of companies to shut, in particular, female employees up when they'd been sexually harassed and worse at work. And the government have risen to this in the UK, and I wonder if this is something that's going to roll out around much of the rest of the world, is NDAs are going to be not allowed to quieten or shut up employees if it's anything to do with harassment or discrimination. And I think it's quite an interesting development. At the same time, there's a whole host of other things coming through around things like fire and rehire. So we've seen that, where there's a restructure of a business, they fire all the staff, they reapply and they get less pay, less benefits, etc. There's going to be changes to the rulings around that as well to make it more restrictive so employers can't do that. And similarly for temporary staff in the UK, at the moment we've got a rule around pay parity, but that doesn't kick in for 12 weeks, etc. So equal rights in essence for temps. And that's going to be potentially moved to a day one right for the worker, so that all workers are treated the same. And I think maybe under the last government, some of that stuff got closed down, which had been rolling through from the EU previously. And I think there's a change in direction here. There's going to be a fair bit more to protect workers, changing some of the basics of the way in which people are employed and controlled, shall I say, when they are forced out of their jobs. So I thought it was quite an interesting change that's happening.
No, and I think it's a good thing, to be honest, because these things happen, and often people are paid off and given hush money and aren't allowed to speak about what actually went on. And then the perpetrator never gets punished. I mean, but sometimes you get caught. So the CEO of Astronomer in the US, a billionaire CEO, he had an NDA associated with his work, but now everybody in the world has seen the video and knows that he's a Coldplay fan. So
exactly, I know. Yeah, it's shocking, isn't it? Yeah, I think everyone's seen that now. What an embarrassment! How embarrassing! Oh no, you were seen watching Coldplay. I actually did go to see Coldplay about 20 years ago, and they were terrible then as well. And I remember I went with a friend, and we were going, "Haven't they already played this one for about the 6th time?"
Did you get friendly with your colleague in the crowd?
I did, but we weren't on the kiss cam.
That's good to hear.
And that's the news. So let's get talking about tariffs then. So last week you got the latest view on tariffs with Trump announcing various things. So you've been spamming up a bit on this, haven't you, Ed? With what's the latest view and who's the winners and who are the losers so far? Do we think
global GDP? It seems
is the loser.
Is the loser. So global GDP is the loser. So there's lots of bullshit spoken in the media about all of this. And if you look at some of the stats behind what's gone on, like the S&P in the US fell massively when Trump initially announced his tariffs. However, year on year, it's up 6% now. So there was a correction down and there's a correction back up. Okay. Unemployment in the US is pretty much where it was or growing. Okay. And inflation has gone up 0.1% in April-May timeframe. At the same time, the Fed have seen tariff revenues go up from 2% of their total take of tax to 5%. So from a US perspective, and maybe from Donald Trump's perspective, not all bad. However, for all of us, and include the US, the suggestion is, as a result of what's going on, global GDP will fall 1%, which is quite significant because obviously it's an average. So in some countries it will fall 10%, in other countries it will still go up. Okay, so that's quite a profound impact on the global economy. You think how many trillion, I don't know how much the global economy is worth, but it's just worth a huge number. And a 1% fall is enormous. And the second is the suggestion by a lot of economic commentators, not political commentators, economic commentators, is that the US will go into recession and possibly followed by Europe. If Europe and the US are sneezing, then China, Vietnam, all those other countries will be hit. So I think we would look, because we're not in the United States, we'd look at the overall picture. But I think that it's mixed in reality. In the US, only about 11 or 12% of what people spend their money on is imported. Now, obviously, components into some of the stuff that's bought, like steel, like copper, that comes from outside, and people don't necessarily see it in that way. But a lot of activity isn't related to buying goods, and that's the point. So when we talk about the impact, it's quite difficult to see, isn't it, Rich? I think, Alex.
Yeah.
I think, but if you look at the historical context, and maybe you want to pick that up, Rich, about what's happened before, because this has gone on in the US like 8 or 9 times before.
So procurement people, you need a big spreadsheet with lots of columns on it and probably some rows on it to work all this out, it seems. But yes, you're right. We've talked about these on the last episode of Procurement Says No, I think. The William McKinley tariffs of 1897. And I think Trump is a big fan of William McKinley and his tariffs. This was mainly about the empire and the US beating up the UK. And they were 57% on UK goods being imported into the US. Although, bizarrely, they were masked at the time because, of course, the huge strength of the UK economy. And the UK government then said, what we're going to do, this sounds remarkably similar to things that were said during Brexit, we're going to have the empire first strategy to export to the empire. So that was good. I don't think it had a massive effect in the end, although it did drive the setting up of industry in the US, didn't it? So, which I guess is where Trump is coming from. Then in 1929, the more famous one is the Smoot-Hawley tariffs, which were around the sort of time of the Wall Street crash. And they were put in place in the belief that they could grow the US economy after the crash. Sounds familiar. That one led, of course, to the Great Depression and the rise of fascism in Europe. So that one didn't work quite so well.
Is that the law of unintended consequences, the rise of fascism?
Who'd have thunk it?
Exactly. But from an economics perspective, tariffs create inflation in the home market, generally speaking, in the short term. That generally leads to some sort of fall in the currency value because of investor confidence, which quite often relates in interest rates going up. The cost of capital goes up. Government debt payments go up. So those costs of paying interest on the government debt becomes an issue because that eats into tax revenue. So whatever tariffs revenue you get is spent on paying for your government debt. Now, government debt in most Western economies, including in particular the US, is really high. So there's a load of bad things that come from tariffs, and the uncertainty in the market has driven the dollar down in value, isn't it? We know that. So that sort of makes them a better prospect if you're buying from them, but it pushes prices up further in their home market, possibly more than the tariffs will. You know, from an economics perspective, whether you're a traditional sort of fiscal economist or a monetarist, the impact is the same. It has a negative impact on the home market. And I think that certainly during Trump's term, it's probably going to be a negative all the way through because he's got 3.5 years left. The legacy, to your point, Rich, about whenever it was 1880 or something,
1897.
it sort of had a benefit. It ultimately had a benefit to the economy. A friend of mine in the US, I think he's perhaps more on the Republican side. He said, "Oh, it's great. Trump's great because what he's doing is taking all that fantastic negotiation experience he's got as a businessman and doing it to the world." Sort of. He didn't say doing it to the world. He was a lot politer than that. But he said he's bringing this great negotiation skills to bear, and that's going to have a great outcome for the US.
So that's been the negative view of tariffs from Mr. Ed Cross. Now let's hand over to Alex, who's going to tell us some of the positive things about tariffs.
You've given that one to me, have you?
And also, question 1B is, Trump, is he a good negotiator? Discuss.
So, first of all, I think there are many reasons why he's doing this, and I'm not sure he's that worried about some of the unintended consequences of where we're going, because actually, if you look at the polls in North America, majority of them, a smaller majority, but a majority of them still love what he's doing, still think what he's doing is the right thing.
Is this the polls who are fixing their boilers and doing their various plumbing jobs?
Those are the ones, yeah. But you're talking here about a voting public who think the largest country in Europe is Paris. So this is not something that we should use as an effective gauge when we're measuring the effectiveness of it, but he is. And I think genuinely, he wants to be, I saw his interview, which he did with his daughter last week, and he always picks someone very close to him to do the questioning. But she asked him some questions, and really, I think he wants to be known as the best president ever. He wants people to love him. And I think he's got in his head some kind of model that will enable him to somehow get to a position where he can fuel the American people, the majority of them not paying any taxes, similar to this kind of Bermuda Dubai model that he's basing it on. And I'm not sure the numbers will work, but then there's real opponents to this now in the likes of his friend, Mr. X, who is saying, look, the cost of doing this, if you're going to bring all this money in, you don't then just give it away. We've got to pay down our debt because we're bankrupt as a country. And the UK is in a similar position. If you saw the video last week, but the good news is we don't have the highest GDP to debt ratio, but we're fourth and growing, and we're growing fast. These things need to be sorted. So he's using the money to fuel popularity rather than trying to fix the economy. And that's the dangerous thing, I think, about what he's doing. Some of the other reasoning behind it, it's about security of America. So you think about pharmaceuticals and his threat to put 200% tariffs on pharma. You're talking about a country here that has addicted itself to pharmaceuticals. They use more per person than anywhere else in the world, and they import it all. And something like 70% of their generics are coming from China. That's the problem. They have created an economy where they're bringing everything from other places that makes them vulnerable. China doesn't need an F35. Just stop sending them Viagra, and they're screwed.
I see what you did there. I think they're not screwed, though, are they?
Not screwed. He's trying to force pharma, and there's no way they're ever going to pay 200%. But what he's saying is, if you don't commit to moving the production over here over the next few years to release us from this threat that we've created ourselves, then we need to fix that. The reason he's drawing down on their reserves is because he's trying to make them self-sufficient. And that's where the drill baby drill comes from. Not to bring. Well, he wants oil prices down because that is one of the things that's saving him on inflation right now. But he also doesn't want to be reliant on. He doesn't want Saudi deciding whether or not their economy's up or down. So there are some things that he's doing that make sense. The methodology is all over the place, and that's what I struggle to see. I don't see a plan. I see I see an end game of what he wants to get there, but he's like playing chess, and he's just read the rules.
And the negotiation strategy is always starting from this unfeasibly unrealistic position, isn't it? Because he's the most powerful man in the world. So anybody else would be saying, "Oh, that's not really a sensible starting position." But he is starting up here.
if you look at the 64-bot grid, to your point, he is absolutely convinced himself that I am all powerful. Anything I can do will have a reaction, and they'll have to respond to it because I am the most powerful man in the world. And there's some truth to that until all the other nations decide to get together and say, screw you. And they're starting to do that.
Yeah.
Law of unintended consequences, isn't it? The economists can talk as much as they like, and he can take whatever actions he's like. But what is the response? There's a sort of economic response, but then there's a sort of human response, and he's playing a negotiation game in the world of politics, and he doesn't have that background. I know he's president for 4 years previously, but he doesn't really have that steeped in sort of life served in politics and bureaucracy, and there's games that go on, I think, and all sorts of stuff that we don't know about. And I think that, you know, whether the EU, whether China, whether it drive China to get much closer to Russia and other nations, for example, which it already seems to be doing anyway. And when we think about the Ukraine conflict, you know, the suggestions that China won't back off supporting Russia because of the sort of, they feel too invested in it and they don't want to stop support. You know, it's that sort of political landscape that you worry about, and the ultimate blowback on the US because of that. I just want to light a moment, right? So where are the biggest tariffs?
I was going to say, yeah, who are the biggest losers and who are the biggest winners at the moment?
Yeah, so I had a bit of a look at this. So near the top of the list is the Falkland Islands. I don't know.
Now, remember, folks, it is still illegal to trade in penguins or to send them through the post. So even if the tariffs are high or low, you shouldn't be sending penguins through the post.
Yeah, so Falklands, 41%. Obviously, Brazil, you touched on 50%, but that's a bit of a punishment, I think, for Bolsonaro and what's changed in there. Obviously, you know what's going on in China. That's vacillating. Okay. EU, 30% at the moment. Laos, 40%. I mean, this is a diddly, very small country. I don't think there's a lot of trade. And then there's some others. Lesotho. So, listeners, where's Lesotho? It's in South Africa. 50%. South Africa, 30%. And then Nauru, a little island in the Pacific, 30%.
That's so that it stops people sending it through the back door. And look at the exports from Nauru have gone up from 2 pence to 36 billion. Oh, what?
You'll find these small countries have a particular product that the Americans love. There's a deficit with them, and he's taken it from a spreadsheet, and they've just drawn down, and there's a column, a multiply by X, and it creates a number.
So top of my list is Falklands. So we know that's penguin exports.
Yeah,
to Richard's point. Fiji, I think of palm trees and coconuts. So is it coconut exports from a few? You know, Fiji's a bunch of small islands, I think, isn't it? So what's the big export from Lesotho? It's a really poor nation in part of South Africa, isn't it? Sort of a separate nation, but within South Africa. So what did they do wrong?
It's the threat.
Well, it's just like, 50, and then Vietnam, who were hit with about 100%, were they? They've agreed 20%.
So I've just had a look. Lesotho, 56 million in diamonds.
Oh,
$56 million.
And knitted women's suits, $48 million.
Diamond encrusted women's knitted suits are the latest thing.
So they actually shipped last year $237 million worth of product to America, and he's just looked at that and thought they're buying nothing from us. They haven't bought a single Escalade.
There's no Cybertrucks going that way.
No. So, but really, so is it about political influence or is it about trade? Which is it? One for the listeners to think about, perhaps.
Yes, that's a little bit of homework for you all. And we want your answers on a postcard, not written by AI, by next week, please.
No.
You can put them in the chat.
No. Yeah. But if he makes an agreement with Brazil, the Falklands will be the most badly affected. Well, what are they? A nation, a protectorate? And what have they done wrong? Yeah.
Too many penguins going to the US.
Bizarro, isn't it?
So what should procurement folk, our listeners, do now, chaps? What should they do? What do we recommend? You've got the answer.
Lean back in your chair and see what happens.
But you'll be pleased to know that we have already written a 5-step guide to navigating Trump's tariffs as a set of 5 bullet points. Do you want me to go through them?
If AI is one of them, we're going to have a problem.
That's the 6th one on our 5th in our 5 bullet points.
On our 5 commandments.
So the first one is develop agile sourcing models, agile ones, investing in local and regional supply chains. That's number one. Number one, develop agile sourcing models. Secondly, strengthen your supplier due diligence. That's the stuff that you're not doing anything of at the moment. You need to get out there, folks, and be diligent and do diligent things with your suppliers. Find out where they are, what they're doing. If they're knitting women's garments and putting diamonds in the pockets or on the soles of their shoes. Thirdly, and Ed came up with this one because I don't understand it, you need some tariff re-engineering strategies. Yeah. We're not going to explain that now, or are we?
No?
Are you? Can you?
Yeah, but so you can challenge a tariff. So it's simple. You go to the government, basically, in essence, the government department, and you say that's not really that's something else. So you seek to challenge the tariff. So I used to be
that's not a penguin; it's a chocolate biscuit.
Exactly. And the chocolate was exported from the US to our little factory in the Falklands and processed and then returned to the US. So you can go and talk about value add, you can talk about what it really is, etc., etc. So there is an option to challenge.
Fourthly, in our list of 5 things, you got to implement advanced risk analytics to guide your procurement decisions with a big spreadsheet, like the one that you tried to work out your tariffs earlier. Bigly spreadsheet. And fifthly, pay attention because it's all going to change next week anyway. And 6th on our list of 5 things is invest in AI quickly before everybody else does.
Yeah.
And if you're using AI, I have an interesting fact about AI as well. You'll like this, and you know my definition of it, don't you, Ed?
No.
Artificial insemination. Niall Ferguson wrote this in the Times last weekend, I think it was. It was a piece about universities and plagiarism in student essays, which is now being complicated further, of course, by AI. And lots of students are using AI to just write their essays for them. There's a guy called Toby Walsh, who's an academic. He's a professor of AI at the University of New South Wales in Sydney. And he's done a bit of analysis on this, probably with more than 34 people or whatever it was earlier. A June 2024 study which used fake student profiles to slip wholly AI-generated work into professors' grading piles at a UK university. The AI detectors, such as Turnitin and Zero GPT, they recognized how much of a percentage of that work that was they recognized as being AI driven. It was 3%. They only spotted 3%. So students, you can be using AI as much as you bleeding well like, because 97% of you will get away with it. Walsh then fed one of the mostly AI generated essays into Zero GPT. And it estimated that something which was mostly written by AI was 11.74% generated by AI. So again, 89% you can get away with it. And then finally, and this is the best bit, he ran the book of Genesis, the first book of the Bible, through Zero GPT, and it came back as the Bible being 93.33% guaranteed AI generated. It was not written by man. It was written by superior intellectual beings from space.
There you go.
So there you are. Proof of the existence of God on the Alchemie Network.
I just want to come back on a couple of the ones that you mentioned there, because first of all, I like your 5-point plan. I think they're great. The biggest one for me is this agility, and whether you use some kind of algorithm or you use AI to assist you, whatever. What if scenario planning is essential right now, and you need to be able to flex. This whole point of single sourcing from a single location needs to be rethought, because you can totally fall foul and become manufacturingly bankrupt just by having followed that strategy. So you need to have that agility and flexibility and the willingness within your business to enable you to flex. Those days when you can't even get a trial on the manufacturing floor because manufacturing say we haven't got time, and forget that. We've got days to do this. And building into that, first mover advantage is quite key as well, because your competitors are looking at exactly the same data and they will eventually come up with the same answers. So
because they're using AI.
The answer is actually maths. So whether you're doing it on a piece of paper, on a whiteboard, or using AI, the answer is maths. So you should come all to a similar, and we've been doing this before. So we did it during COVID, and we did it during the Suez blockage, and we did it during the start of the Ukraine war, and when you couldn't get certain products. People flexed and adjusted accordingly.
And the good news is for procurement people that the boards of businesses and the CEO of businesses and the CFOs of business are listening now, because they didn't believe it before when we said there's a risk with this supply chain. Now they believe it because it's happened several times.
You know, like I was saying at the time of the Ukraine war and the beginning of COVID, it was a fantastic time for procurement to get more visibility on these topics, because we can create, working with supply chain, working with manufacturing and engineering, adjusted supply patterns that we can move around. And actually, another thing you're going to have to think about is how you concertina and flex your inventory models within your supply chain, because we've seen a lot of the protectionism from tariffs going on by huge pull forwards by companies during the early part of the years, the people that were already planning for it. And the lack of effect on GDP at the moment that we talked about is partly shielded by this huge pull forward that's happening. And we're going to see an opposite effect of that when all the ships are in the wrong places, and it'll take some time for the containers to be in the right place. The third one that you talked about tariff re-engineering strategies, you know, $4.5 billion a year is spent in the US on lobbying. Okay, so all of these industries right now are lobbying for themselves, and they're all saying, copper, this is madness. You know, we are importing 200,000 tons. You need to rethink this. And they are influencing right now. And the same thing will be going on microchips, and the same thing will be being done by the pharma industry. So I'm wholly supportive of you, but you have to do it as a group of companies. You can't do it as just a single one. Because the money is huge. You know, you can't say, go and spend $500,000 on lobbying someone and expect it's a drop in the ocean. 4.5 billion is being spent on professional lobbyists.
How many F35s could you get for that?
Quite a few. Some of them are given.
That would be a more powerful lobbying method, wouldn't it?
I mean, some of the lobbying method is actually getting. They what they do is they invite people to Coldplay concerts and then catch them, and then they got them red-handed, and they use that as blackmail.
Remember, folks, if you are building inventory, remember the guy at the OXO factory who was sacked for holding too much stock.
And folks, you can see that in one of our TikTok videos with other jokes. Yeah. Just on that short-termism versus long-termism, there's some good stuff on the SIPS website that's worth talking about that. The survey says they've been surveying their members, and a lot of them are saying they're less worried in the short term, as you just pointed out, because they can buy ahead and take other actions. They're more worried about 6 months than they are the next 3 months. And then just to support your point, imports into the US in the first 5 months of the year were up 17%.
So everyone's buying forward.
Yeah. So the big organisations have taken action immediately. There's a question from Luke Stroud. He's asking about due diligence for SMEs, and I guess that's the issue, isn't it? Really, that what do smaller organisations do? Because they're just on the end of this. It's you work for Kelloggs or whoever, big cereal user. You can start lobbying. You can throw lots of money at it. You've got a big procurement department. But if you're from a smaller organisation, you're just on the end of this, aren't you? They're the organisations that will probably get hit worse.
They are, but if you're the CEO of one of those organisations and you happen to be listening to this, now is the time to invest in your procurement and supply chain. You need the right capability. We should absolutely be putting money into procurement right now. You need the best people.
Yeah, it's
not a time to say let's cut the procurement budget 20%. I mean, I'm with Luke. I think it's a difficult one for small companies to do, but I think it's about creativity. It's not about receiving requisitions and turning them into purchase orders. It's about enabling yourself to move above that day to day and think about, how can I make an impact? What can I change about what we're doing? Carve out some time each day to look at the business and think, if it was my money, what would I do? I think it's a great opportunity for us. to be honest. We might not get listened to by the business, but we can certainly say "I told you so" in a year's time.
And then move to Dubai.
And news just in from the port of Houston, which is the largest port in the US. There is chaos in the port of Houston now, with a glut of penguins who have been spotted in a container ship, which has been banned from the Falklands. And on that bombshell, that is us having done tariffs to death. We won't talk about tariffs ever again, not until the next time. Any closing comments?
I just want to say thank you to you guys. Love speaking to you. I think it's really good what you guys do.
No problem. And just to plug a bit of Procurement Says No as well, Ed and I spoke this week to Ben Farrell, who is the CEO of SIPS. And so we'll be publishing that one in the next week or so. And he's invited us to do all sorts of things for SIPS as well, which we're very, very excited about.
And I've got to say, what a fantastic chap he is.
What a lovely chap. What a lovely chap.
He was a lovely chap.
I told you.
Wow, just so enthusiastic.
He's a lovely chap.
What a great leader. After all the sort of stodgy leadership of the SIPs before, he's an absolute breath of fresh air. He's just like a force of nature, I thought. He was just 100 miles an hour, wasn't he, Rich? And
he was great. He also said, if I don't get this done, I'll die trying. And we went, oh, the previous guy died. On that bombshell. Thank you very much for listening.
Yeah. Cheers all.
Bye-bye, bye-bye, bye-bye.
Thanks.
It was you last time that was the problem.
Yeah. You're right, Ed.
Yeah, I'm just sitting in the waiting room.
Do you want to come out and come in again? Because I just came out and came in again. It all magically worked.
If he refreshes the Alchemie, you should see see it at the top. Ed's left. He's had enough.
It's always good to have a bit of mild panic just before the event.
Absolutely. So Ed is now in.
Why is my camera not on?
Oh, here we go. Jeez Louise.
It says it's on. FaceTime.
I think this is probably Trump's fault.
You haven't been paying your tariffs.